Hi there. Thanks so much for joining us. We have a bunch of attendees filing in here, so we're going to get started here just momentarily. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. This is a brand new series that we are doing here at MVP. And, I had the idea because we here at MVP have been talking about MVP for 3 or so years now. And quite frankly, I'm a little tired of hearing myself talk about MVP. So I thought it would be really beneficial for our existing users, potential users of MVP, and even those of us here at MVP to hear how some of our power users are using MVP in their practices. So, welcome to session 1 of the MVP User Stories series. Really excited that you're here. I'm Chelsea Treseder. I'm one of the co-founders of MVP. And again, really want to thank everyone for sharing a little bit of time with us today. Okay, so I am thrilled to be joined by 3 amazing MVP users today. They are Eric Elliot, Ariel, Fruendt, and Madison Levine. I will introduce them in more detail as they each share their knowledge and wisdom with us today. And actually, as we were preparing for this webinar, Eric helped me realize something that's pretty cool and unique. And that is that all 3 of our presenters today have something in common, which is that they are second generation hearing care professionals. Here at MVP, we are also a multi-generation family business. So just kind of cool to be together with other families in this business and exciting to see how they're each bringing analytics and some additional business rigor into their practices. So I know that many of our attendees today are existing users of MVP, but for those who aren't, I wanted to spend just 1 minute, I promise, explaining what MVP is, which is Audiology and Hearing Care's first and only BI tool. MVP does so much, but I will mention just a few highlights. It integrates directly with your office management system, so there's no manual or additional work required by you or your team. All of the KPIs that are calculated in MVP are done so in near real time with no human involvement. There are over 1,100 clinics using MVP at this point, so we offer benchmarking to like-size practices. We have a strong focus on referral source analytics, database composition, campaign performance, and we're able to deliver actionable insights at a time when new patient generation is important. We've seen some real softness across the market this year. MVP uses predictive analytics to forecast the future based on your actual schedule strength and other factors, so you can make changes now, not when you notice a problem in the bank account. And finally, we help you understand your market share and penetration rate so you understand in your specific market where you can go to grow. Okay, so I'm excited to introduce our first presenter, which is Eric Elliot, who is the managing director of A&E Audiology, a leading hearing healthcare practice dedicated to compassion, excellence, and community impact. He oversees strategy, operations, and team leadership, ensuring both patients and staff are supported with integrity. His career began at KPMG in audit and advisory, where he developed a strong foundation in precision and accountability, working with public sector agencies and Fortune 500 clients. He later joined A&E Audiology, which was a practice founded by his mother, to help advance its mission-driven growth. Under his leadership, A&E has fostered a culture of mentorship and service, highlighted by initiatives such as the Circle of Giving program, international outreach, and local Rotary engagement. He also serves as immediate past president of the Rotary Club of Lancaster. So thank you so much for being here with us today, Eric. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right. Hi, everyone. Chelsea, thank you so much for inviting me to speak here today. I appreciate your introduction. And, going back to the year 2000 when A&E Audiology was founded by my mother, she grew the practice. And then by 2013, when I joined, there was already a very well-established operation with team norms, routines, et cetera. And there really was already a good amount of attention on data entry and reporting. The top managers at the practice reviewed KPIs on a regular basis, and there was a bonus and incentive plan in place that rewarded the team for achieving certain goals, mostly revenue goals, but also goals for specific activities in the practice, like getting referrals from patients and things like that. So I share all of that because there was a strong culture of tracking performance, but it was all done manually. And after I joined the practice, again, in 2013, I reworked the whole KPI reports into a format that I could work with that made more sense to me. It was done in Excel, and I worked with the team to ensure that we had reliable data entry, which starts the whole process of reviewing KPIs off on the right foot. And truth be told, many of the team members at A&E Audiology said at the time that I was going a little bit overboard of putting together dashboards in Excel and PowerPoint, but the point of that is that that manual process took a great deal of time to accomplish. Countless hours setting up the dashboards, maintaining them. God forbid if anybody else had access to the Excel spreadsheets and made changes, there were inevitably going to be issues with all that. And then when I got to prepare them into report packages that I could either print or email, even that process would take a lot of time. So it all worked, but it was kind of a fragile process. It was susceptible to a lot of human error. And every month just felt like a race against the clock to compile data before our team meetings. And while I loved the clarity that those dashboards gave me, they weren't always as accessible for the rest of the team. And then when we discovered MVP, it really felt like someone had built a tool that we had been trying to cobble together ourselves. And so suddenly, instead of spending, I would say, 3 to 5 hours a month preparing these reports, I could log in and see everything in real time, very adaptable. The homepage gave us a good snapshot. The KPI center let us drill down. And the goals tab really became part of our weekly rhythm, which I'll explain a little bit more in a minute. So one of the things that I love about using MVP is it's just saved me a lot of time where I don't have to prepare these manual dashboards, export data from our office management software, and go through that whole process. When I initially went through the onboarding phase with MVP, the team was really easy to work with, very responsive to all of my requests for customizations. And thinking back, I would say that I used MVP the most intensively and spent the most time in the program getting familiar with the platform in the first 3 or 4 months of using it. So that's when some of the setup and helping me understand and get familiar with how things work, it was the most utilized. Now that I'm using it on an ongoing basis, I love that I can just log in, get results in real times, and I typically start with the homepage. So Kate, if you don't mind, I'll request if you just pull that up on your screen, please. So that's usually where I start. I think all of us users really live here when we log in, and then I jump over to the monthly recap and then into the KPI center. That's usually the path that I take. The monthly recap is a newer tab. I think it's been in use for about 6 months or so. But what I love about this is that it puts everything into plain English. So when I'm looking for insights into our providers, I can click from here into the More Insights and Clinics and Providers section and really get an assessment of how my team's doing. And that's important because one of the goals for our practice this year is to increase our providers' conversion rate and to increase their performance. So this monthly recap tab has given me a lot of easily extractable insights into how things are going from month to month. And so I love using that. As we roll out different marketing initiatives and provider trainings, I've spent a lot of time in that area, just kind of drilling down and looking at trends, since it automatically provides comparative information against goals in prior periods. We started also, I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about the impact that MVP has had on my team. The most important part of my role at A&E has been managing people and managing the team. And so part of that is our meeting cadence, our meeting schedule. We hold a weekly team meeting on Monday morning where we get everyone in the practice at all of our locations joining virtually as we start the week. And part of that meeting every week is that we look at a scoreboard to see how we're doing with our revenue goals. And that's been a practice that's been in place for at least 10 years now. of regularly looking at a scoreboard. Our practice is in the Philadelphia area, so I use the Eagles in a lot of my analogies. And I once read that if your employees aren't regularly looking at their goals, it's like asking the Eagles to play without being able to see the scoreboard or the lines on the field. They won't always know when it's the right time to really hit the gas and push for the last few yards to get to the end zone. So giving on the flip side of that, having everybody regularly check in on goals and revenue has put a lot more power in everybody's hands to be able to understand insights and understand what they can do to help us achieve our goals. So we've gone through different iterations of the scoreboard over the years. And as I mentioned, in the past, it was spreadsheets and things that I compiled, things that are shared through Google Drive or Excel that are accessible to everybody in the organization. And that requires taking information manually out of our office management software and putting it into a spreadsheet. And not everybody on the team is as comfortable using spreadsheets and dashboards. So that always was susceptible to a lot of human error and confusion and things like that, or just not timely getting their information into the scoreboards. But now using MVP, the MVP team has given access to each of my employees to access our goals tab. So that's what Kate's sharing on the screen here. And this is really where this is what we're pulling up at our weekly team meetings. So we'll spend about 5 minutes going over this. I'll have each team, so a representative from each team, report their revenue and where they're at as far as month to date. So they'll take turns going through the offices and say, last week's revenue was, let's say, 15,000. As of month to date revenue as of the 21st is 45,000, and our goal at this point in the month is 50,000. So they'll say we're off track by 10%. And what I like about that is that each team is reporting their own numbers, so they're not waiting for me to come and tell them how they're doing. They can pull it up themselves. They can report it to the rest of the team and own it. And that has, in my opinion, helped to create more of a culture of accountability and democratized the access to information and about goals. And really at the end of the day, the team in the clinic who are seeing patients and producing revenue, they own those numbers and they're reporting it to the rest of the team and to the managers and to me. And that flip of, making top-down reporting to bottom-up reporting has had a lot of downstream ripple effect impact. A really important part of that is that our bonus plan is all based on our revenue goals. So when we sync up the bonus plan with the revenue goals, it means that everybody is financially invested and incentivized in achieving that goal. So they need to know where they're at. I like how all of that works really nicely together. There's alignment from our goals to our incentives to the team motivations. And I love that I'm not using Excel to put these together and building out formulas and things like that. So it's been a huge time saver and created better alignment. There's one KPI in here that I also wanted to just talk about a little bit. So if Kate, you could pull up the other KPIs here in the KPI center. I mentioned earlier that one of our goals as a practice in 2025 is to improve our providers' conversion rate. To put a finer point on that, my ultimate goal is to improve our opportunity value. So there's a KPI here in the bottom right of this table. When I was onboarding with MVP, I spoke to Will and Gaurav about this KPI and explained that it was something that I was using in our practice that was very valuable information. This is like a great equalizer KPI. It combines and it's the product of the provider's conversion rate, their average selling price, their binaural rate, so what percentage of patients are getting 2 hearing aids instead of 1, and our keep rate, which is the inverse of our return rate. So why that's important, why I find value in that is, when I say we need to increase our opportunity value, we need to improve our results. A provider can go about that from different angles. They can either convert more patients or they can increase their ASP, or they can reduce their return rate, or they can get a higher binaural rate. There's different paths to doing that, and ultimately blending them all together, you see that each of them impacts overall the value of an opportunity. So one way of looking at this is when I'm running a marketing initiative or a marketing campaign and booking opportunities, this really tells me the value of each opportunity on my schedule. If I've got 2 or 5, I can see what the expected revenue is from those appointments based on all of these building blocks, based on all of the factors in that equation. So I understand. I was just talking to Chelsea when we were booting up our webinar here that this is now available for everybody in MVP. And I think it's worth taking some time to understand what it means and how it impacts how your team can improve the opportunity value and what impact that can have on your schedule. I've found a lot of value in this because oftentimes those dynamics work. They work together in either they move in the same direction, or they move in opposite directions. So for instance, I had a provider with us last year who he wouldn't take no from an answer, essentially not from me and not from his patients. And so he would get a high conversion rate. But I think when you have a provider like that, often they have a high return rate, and that's what we saw. We saw that he was, in the initial consultation appointments, he was getting a yes from his patients, but once they got out of that environment and went home and thought about it, they brought their devices back for a return. So you'd see often when the conversion rate goes up, you'd see his return rate go up as well. And then in similar fashion, we had a provider who she had a higher conversion rate but a lower ASP because she was just often backing down from recommending the highest level devices in order to win a conversion from a patient. And we saw that her return rate actually lowered when she got her ASP up. And so that you can see those building block dynamics moving in different directions. And there's a story there if you pay attention to the trends. I like that the opportunity value kind of mushes all that together into one equalizing KPI. So for the way that I like to look at our dashboards and our information is I try to focus on a limited number of KPIs that tell the story of how our practice is doing. And so using opportunity value as like my headline number that I pay attention to, and then drilling down deeper when the story has something that I need to investigate further has been a good practice. So I will pass it back to you, Chelsea. Thanks for your time.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Eric. That's so interesting. And I liked how, Kate, you were showing there how you could click any one provider and see how their opportunity value is changing year over year, which I think is, something interesting to keep an eye on as well, and hopefully changing in the right direction with that kind of awareness and mentoring. So great. Okay. Can you guys see my slides again? Okay, great. Well, again, thank you, Eric. That was really, really awesome to hear all those different ways you're using MVP in your practice. And I'm excited to introduce our second presenter, who is Ariel Fruendt. She is a co-owner and clinical audiologist at Pacific Hearing Service, which is an independent private practice with 2 locations in the San Francisco Bay Area. She has over a decade of experience in both private practice and academia, and she joined Pacific Hearing Service 6 years ago and recently became an owner. She's passionate about evidence-based care, mentorship, and community outreach through initiatives such as Pacific Hearing Connection and also international humanitarian work. She earned her undergraduate degree and AUD at Northwestern, completing her clinical externship at UCSF Medical Center. Outside of work, she enjoys exploring the outdoors with her family. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ariel.
Thank you, Chelsea. So I am really excited to be here today talking about MVP. Similar to Eric, we were doing a lot on spreadsheets before we joined. And I will say that the MVP team has been awesome in onboarding us. I was very hesitant at first to share our data, and Kate and Chelsea definitely talked me through that. And it has been amazing since we joined. So to give a little background on Pacific Hearing Service, we have been in business for 48 years. So there's a lot of things that we have been doing for decades. And it's been great to come in now as a co-owner and look at things from a different perspective and trying to understand and have the data behind why we do certain things. And to give you a little bit of information about Pacific Hearing Service, we currently have 10 audiologists between our 2 locations. We have 1 extern, 4 audiology assistants, 5 patient care coordinators, and then several people in operations roles. So we are managing quite a large team and a number of different providers. And I think one thing that's been great for me is I'm only one of the 10 providers. I'm currently seeing patients 3 to 4 days a week and then doing the business management 1 to 2 days a week. So what I'm seeing clinically might not at all be representative of what the team is seeing. And so I think it's great to remove some of my bias or, what I'm experiencing as a clinician from what is going on with the rest of the team. So it's been, again, a couple of years as I've been transitioning a little bit, taking a step back from the clinic and taking more of a role in terms of the decision making. And I feel like MVP has given me a new perspective and then also the data that I need to make those decisions so I can feel confident in what we're doing. So today I'd like to hit on 5 different areas where MVP has been really helpful and time saving. I think we all know a lot goes into business ownership and things kind of come up last minute. You're putting out a fire over here. You're answering questions. So anything that we can do, any tool that we have to save time can be really, really helpful. And so today I'd like to go into patient flow, referrals, hearing aids, a look at revenue, and then some custom projects that MVP has done for us. So I am going to share my screen to go through that. Okay, can everyone see the screen? So this is not our clinic data. Yeah, thanks. This is just the MVP data, but I want to talk through some areas that I have found really helpful. So I love the KPI center right here. And one of the things that was really helpful for us in looking at our patient flow was we went through a period where we were short-staffed. And again, having the data helped us make some decisions that has been really beneficial for our practice. So one thing I love in patient flow right here is looking at the booking delay. And so that is looking at how long it takes from when somebody schedules an appointment to when the appointment actually happens. And we were looking at this for certain appointment types. It looks like it's just taking a minute to load here. So for example, we found that our booking delay for a new patient hearing evaluation and consultation was 19 and a half days. And then our booking delay for a fitting was 16 days. So that meant it was about 35 and a half days from when a patient called to make that initial appointment to when we were able to fit them with hearing aids. And so we wanted to look at what was the delay and what could we do about it. So one thing that's great about this drill down is you can look by appointment type. So we had never had a blocked schedule. We've been doing things for 48 years. And we said, okay, we need to make sure that we have time where we can fit in new patients, fit in these longer appointment times, because it was hard to find the 90 minutes in our schedule when we were super busy. And so having that information is what kind of pushed us over the edge to start with the block schedule. We're still not all the way there, but I think that was really helpful. The other thing that we did was we can look by provider. So for example, for hearing aid fitting, you can go by provider. And we found that similar to this example, there were some outliers on both ends. So their fitting delay was 3 weeks, and then others, it was only 1 week. And similar to what Eric said, we want to look into why is there that difference. And our provider, who was the outlier and had the longest delay, it turned out she was actually the most consistent in scheduling her patients right away to come back for the fitting, wanted to make sure that there was time, so she would just schedule them 3 weeks out. And then I was actually the one with the shortest delay, and it's because I wasn't scheduling patients right away. I was like, oh, I'll fit you in next week. We'll see when I'm able to do it. I'd wait to see if there was a cancellation or, what lunch could I see the patient over? What day could I stay a little bit later? So I wouldn't actually be scheduling it until like the day before. So just keep in mind, you want to check your outliers too, to see if there's a story behind why there might be something else going on there. The other thing that we did was we looked at the timing of our appointments because our fittings were 90 minutes, and often our front would be trying to schedule that fitting and it would be pushed out when maybe we didn't need the full 90 minutes because it was a returning patient who was really comfortable with their care and use and the phone connectivity and everything. As I mentioned, we also have several audiology assistants who can support with some parts of the fitting. So we were able to shorten our default appointment time for our fittings down to 60 minutes. Of course, providers can choose if they want to extend it to 90 minutes, kind of depending on the patient situation. But by changing our appointment time, working with our assistants, our front was able to schedule that appointment much faster. So again, it was great just having this data to help us have confidence that this was the right decision. We've been able to shorten our booking delay quite a bit for new HE consults and then also for fittings. Okay, so then the next thing that I want to talk about is referrals. So I have loved what I can look at here. So I'm still in the KPI screen, and back on this first page, we have new patient appointments. And then what you can do, which I love, is looking by appointment type. And then you can separate out your referral source by appointment type, which has been really helpful for us because most of our new patient appointments are either hearing evaluations and consultations or wax removal appointments. And we were finding that we thought we had a lot of patients finding us online, but it turned out that the vast majority of those were actually our new wax removal appointments, which is fine. But it definitely skewed the data when we separated out for our hearing evaluations. So if I drill down here, you can see the hearing evaluation, you have physician referral, online, advertising, patient referral. You can even go a little bit further too, and you can say, okay, out of those that the physicians referred, how many of them were opportunities? And so then we can kind of track the quality of the referral source too. So looking again at our physician referrals, patient referrals online and see which areas do we want to focus on. With wax removal and our new patients there specifically, 1 month we had 100% of new patients find us online, which led us to say, okay, I think we need to start looking into online scheduling through Counselor, our office management system. But again, we have not yet made that jump, but we are planning to because we think, what can we do to improve efficiency? How can we make this easier for patients if they're all finding us online for wax removal? Those are short appointments. Those are easy to fit in same day, next day. Can we have patients that want to schedule these appointments at 9 p.m.? Can we help make that easier when it's not during our normal clinic hours? So yes, and you can get really, really detailed here in the drill down charts. So I love this feature of MVP. Okay. So then the other area that I think has been really helpful in terms of saving time is we all get the calls from the manufacturer. It might be the end of the month, the end of the quarter, they have a promotion that they're offering, and you need to make a decision pretty quickly on whether you want to put in an order. And as a business owner, some of our considerations obviously are cash flow. How comfortable are we with having stock in the office? How much stock do we want? Who's using it? So I love being able to go into the hearing aid section and then tracking this, and I can look at trends real time, very fast without having to pull Excel files, analyze it myself. I can look at units by model. We have cleaned. Sometimes I go into original if the manufacturer came out with a new product. And then I can look by location. So again, we're looking at 2 locations. Which location do we need these hearing aids in? You can look at different providers here. Clinic. So maybe I would only want to look at like 2 clinics, for example. And then I can look at quarter to date. So it will change month to date. So I can get an idea of what the current trends are. For example, if we have a provider who might be going on leave or something we'd want to take into account. So I can look at our current stock, and then I can look at what our needs are and then what makes sense when we're able to do a promotional purchase. So that has just saved a ton of time. And then it's also given us the confidence that we're making the right decision in terms of what our purchases are. And then something else that I like too is going back to the KPI center. This is just a really kind of small time-saving trick, but I like to look at revenue, and then you can look by provider. And then one thing I find is, we're training new people in the front, new patient care coordinators. Things are busy. They have two people on the phone, someone checking out, they're trying to enter invoices. And so sometimes, especially if there's someone new, we'll see the invoice assigned to the wrong person. And so it's really easy just to scroll all the way down to the bottom, and we'll see a patient care coordinator who has more revenue than we would expect. And we can just really easily go to that patient care coordinator, and then we can look at the patient name, and then it pulls up who the patient is, and I can quickly go back to Counsel Ear and adjust that invoice. And this is great, because before it was, again, downloading the spreadsheet, trying to match up, trying to figure out where the mistake was on the invoice. So this is just kind of a little quick recommendation I have if there are kind of those small mistakes in invoices. And so it's something I don't do too often, but maybe just weekly or monthly, I'll just run an audit and see if I need to change any provider names. And the other thing that MVP has been really helpful for us, I'll stop my share right here. They have, if we have a question, their response is always, what can we do? How can we find this out? So they have done a couple custom analyses for us. So they've looked at some of our data. We had a question of what response rate we were getting, and they were able to pull the data one time, and then we got a great idea of how many people were responding to our appointment reminders, for example. We've also used their campaign analyzer tool, which has been great. So figuring out, how many people are actually responding to our mailers that we send out, our upgrade letters, and it's given us the confidence of, oh, we really want to do that again. That one was worth it. Or, oh, this one, we didn't really get much of a response rate there. So we're really appreciative of their support, talking us through everything. I love our meetings with Will. He's awesome in terms of explaining our data. Again, as Chelsea mentioned, kind of highlighting things before they become a problem so that we can be really proactive in what we're doing. So overall, it has been great joining MVP. I could get lost in those drill down charts. If you couldn't tell, I can go very deep. So there is a lot of information available, and they've made it really easy for us. So thanks, Chelsea.
Awesome.
Back to you.
Thanks, Ariel. I really appreciate it. Okay, so with that, we will round it out here with our final presenter, who is Madison Levine. She is a second generation, like the others, hearing healthcare professional and owner of Levine Hearing in South Charlotte. She was inspired by her mother's practice in Macon, Georgia, and is passionate about restoring connection, dignity, and quality of life through better hearing. She is a graduate of the University of Georgia and nationally board certified in hearing instrument sciences. She has managed multiple practices and now leads her independent clinic, which is dedicated to personalized patient-first care. She's also a national thought leader, having presented at the International Hearing Society Conference, Hear World, Dr. Jill's WOW Retreat, and was recently a TEDx Sugar Creek women's speaker on the ear-brain connection. If you haven't checked out her talk, highly recommend that. Maybe we can even drop that link in the chat. But with that, I will go ahead and turn it over to Madison.
Thank you, Chelsea. I'm so excited to be with you guys. I drink out of my MVP Yeti cup every single day in the office, and I think about how thankful I am to have this software. Eric and Ariel, I loved hearing how you guys are using the software. I am doing a lot of similar things, so I don't want to touch on any of the same. I'm going to keep mine pretty pointed and brief, and I'm going to get some of Kate's help navigating the sandbox. I've owned my practice for 10 years. I've always taken data really seriously, and I, like the others, have built a bunch of spreadsheets. And thank goodness I'm done with that. I just log in here every single morning to see how we're doing. So I think of this like my little pulse in the morning. The First thing I do every day, and maybe I'm a little bit OCD about this, is I go to the goals because I want to know, since business closed last night, how close we are to our goal today to know where I need to put my attention. So we can assume everybody's doing great best practice care, but how are we filling the seats in our clinic to make sure that we're hitting those revenue goals every single day? So seeing whether I'm on target for revenue, units, ASP, it's interesting because I'll see these shift and I'll realize, wow, we are killing our revenue goal. We're killing our ASP, but we're not converting as many. So we're seeing a lot of people. We're not converting as many as we need to. We're hitting our goals. It should feel good, but it doesn't, because what I see is that we're leaving opportunities on the table who came to us for help, and we didn't supply them with the help that they came to us for. So taking that data into account and thinking it through is my favorite thing. Ariel touched on the block schedule, and that is the main thing that I want to show you today. Patient flow is exactly where I go. Kate, I love that. And so I want to look ahead at the next 7 days to make sure that we are filling all of our opportunity slots. And I want to look ahead at the month to see where are things red and what do we need to get on the phones? Do we need to send an email newsletter? What can I do to make sure that we're filling the slots? This current sales pipeline in the bottom right is fantastic, showing you the pipeline, the future opportunities, the open opportunities. Sometimes you'll find that this tells a different story than you expect. You might look at the schedule and you go, wow, we are so full. But then you look at your opportunities and you realize you're actually not going to make enough money, even though you're working your tush off every day. So one of the things that we've done with our block schedule, Ariel, maybe this is for you and for all the other people who are implementing, I know how many opportunities per week each provider should have. So those blocks are built way in advance. Maybe it is this provider is going to get 7 opportunities a week. And I know generally what the close rate is going to be. So then I know what the revenue should be. So if you look at back to goals for a second, and then the 2025 forecast, I might look at this every single day too, because what it shows me is for the number of business days we have this month, what is the revenue goal that I've put in for the clinic? When we have a monthly meeting with our team, I present the revenue goal for the month, but also for the day. And that's something that I learned in the dental world that's very common for them, is they know they've got X number of providers, number of slots, they need to produce $11,000 today and tomorrow and the next day. And so most of that doesn't necessarily come from the skill of the provider, it comes from how we schedule. So when I'm using these tools to make sure that we have enough slots booked, we hit our revenue goals without having to think hard about it. It just happens because that's how the schedule is built. So that is my all-time favorite thing about MVP. It's what I use it for the most. And I love seeing when we're winning and we're hitting those goals, and I get to reward our team based on them, just like Eric does. They know exactly what they're going for. It's apparent to them at the beginning of the month. They don't get surprised at the end where did we hit it? Did we not? They know what we're going for. So thank you, Chelsea, for everything that you do.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, we really appreciate it. Okay, I am just going to pull up my final slide, although my mouse isn't responding. Okay, there we go. Great. So yeah, thanks so much, especially to our panelists for being here today, Ariel, Eric, Madison. It was really cool for me to hear how you guys are using MVP. Some of those I knew you guys were doing and others I didn't. So that was really great. I forgot to mention this at the beginning, but if anyone who's here with us today has questions, you can put those in the Q&A box right now. We do have some time to answer some questions. There's already a few that have popped in. So thank you for those of you who've already asked a question. anyone else who would like to ask a question, feel free to do that now. But yeah, the other thing, if you are an MVP user and you're curious about any of the strategies you heard about today, or even, the features in MVP, where to find them, how to use them. Of course, our team is always available to walk through those with you individually. And then, of course, we can look at your real data as well and try to help you understand what's happening with your business. If you aren't using MVP and you've been inspired by these business owners today, and you'd like to see a full demo of everything it offers, obviously we hit a lot of it today, but we didn't get to everything. I'd encourage you can scan the QR code here or visit us at our website, myvitalspro.com, to schedule a demo at any time. So with that, I am going to move to the Q&A. Okay, so the first question I have here, I think for a lot of these questions, I can tell who, which presenter was talking when they asked it, but I would be happy to hear from any of you about these. So if you have a response to this question, please feel free to chime in. But this one was asked when Eric was presenting, which is, do you give your providers access to MVP?
I do. I give my providers access to the goals tab. It's over the years working with providers at the practice, I've found that they can get a little lost in the sauce, and so I don't want to have. They don't have full access to every single element of MVP, but they can see the goals tab, which I think has the most cut and dry information about the revenue goals that they directly control. So that piece of it is shared. At the moment it's working really well. So thank you. Yeah.
Okay, great. Ariel, Madison, do you have anything to add there about what you guys do in your practices?
Yeah, I will add. So we do not share anything on MVP. And I think we're a little bit different. We are a non-commission practice, so we really don't discuss revenue. We're looking at it and we're aware of it as the business owners, but our perspective is we want to take care of the patients. So at our staff meetings every month, what we're talking about are things like the booking delay, the referral sources, kind of what I went through today, because those are great metrics that we can track. They're measurable. And I would say that before MVP, sometimes we struggled with, what measurable goal do we discuss when we're not talking about revenue. And so that has been really helpful for us.
Great.
Yeah, I actively share the goals page with employees in my office. We'll look at it together. I announce it in our monthly meeting. I want them to know that I'm not making it up on the fly. I want them to see that it actually is what the software is telling me based on seasonality, based on last year. I love that it's going to give me an estimate. Is this a stronger month or a weaker month? But I haven't yet given them anything, but I could see giving them the goals tab. That's a great idea, Eric.
Well, I think ultimately you do what makes sense for your team and your practice. And I think that's each of us comes at it from a slightly different perspective based on, our teams. But one thing I did want to mention is that, if, there were times when I was building out all of my spreadsheet dashboards, when I would have performance conversations with my team, and when we got to talking about their revenue production or other KPI opportunity areas, there was a lot of I guess suspicion about my spreadsheets. Like, hey, maybe there's something in here that's not accurate, or you're counting opportunities that I don't really consider an opportunity. So I like the fact that MVP automates all of that. And like you said, Madison, you're not making it up on the fly. Everybody can see where the numbers are coming from, and it's clean. And then also, my thought process, I just wanted to throw this out there, is that since the team is so invested in the goals, I want them to be able to pull it up, to look at it on their own when they are looking at performance or looking at ways to help us close the gap. So that's worked out well for our team, but I will say it took a long time for people to get comfortable using it. Not everybody's as comfortable with working with KPIs and analyzing them.
Yeah, that's great. And it's so great to hear so many different perspectives on that, because I do think across MVP users, it runs the gamut. There are folks who share absolutely nothing. They don't even tell their staff they're using a tool like that to look at the business, all the way through to people who give their providers full access to the whole company, every clinic and all that, and literally everything in between. So we've tried to make it customizable to fit different practice styles. So it's kind of cool to hear that even the three of you kind of do it differently and that hopefully it's working for you. Okay, this question came in when you were talking, Ariel, but what would you say is your desired booking delay? Like when you're looking at those numbers, like what kind of numbers do you want to see there? And does it differ based on your clinics and your providers or, your appointment types, things like that?
That's a great question. So we would love, we'd love to be under a week for the booking delay. If someone calls on a Monday, we'd love to be able to fit them in that same week if possible. Of course, if they have a particular provider that they want to see, maybe they're a returning patient and that provider is booked, we want them to be with whoever they're most comfortable with. I should mention that we do look at all appointment types. So we also look at walk-ins, troubleshooting, pairings, and we love seeing that booking delay of only one day. That means we're able to fit those in. And those are appointments usually with our assistants rather than our providers. But we also track and make sure that we're taking care of people right away when an issue comes up. So we want to keep that booking delay to one day, unless it's something on the patient's schedule. They call and they're on vacation. We can't do it remotely. So we're scheduling them next week when they're back from vacation.
Okay.
And for fittings, so that's the other one, I mentioned we have some hearing aids in stock. And so that was the booking delay. That was like, why are we waiting 16 days when we already have the hearing aids here in the office? How can we move that up to on a time frame that feels comfortable for the patient too? I think Eric, you mentioned sometimes people are really committed in the moment and then they go home and they have second thoughts. We want to make sure that people are comfortable. They're moving at the pace that works for them, but we don't want it to be on our end that we're not able to get them in.
Great. Awesome. Okay, so another question came in about the campaign analyzer, which you mentioned, Ariel. And so that is a relatively new MVP feature. We haven't even officially rolled it out entirely, but I figure since we have mostly existing users on this call, it wouldn't be a terrible time to just mention it. It is a part of MVP where we are able to track how any mail campaigns are performing in real time, whether that's database mail or direct mail, anything where we have a list of folks that you've reached out to. So we won't demo it right now or anything, but if there's anybody on this meeting who does database or direct mail in their practice and would like help from MVP in tracking in real time the results of that, I would say just go ahead and reach out to us. You can info@myvitalspro.com and we can schedule a time to show you how the tool works, walk you through it, and see if it's something that you're interested in using for helping to monitor the outcomes of your marketing campaigns. Okay, this question came in when you were talking, Madison. This is maybe getting a little bit less into MVP technical and more just practice leadership stuff. But when you see that you're not hitting your goals, whether it's as a company or for an individual provider, what are some of the things that you do to make changes or motivate your team?
Yeah, I think having that routine where we have this monthly meeting, everybody knows what to expect. We also have had huddles over the years as well. When we've had times where we really needed to check in more often, we might implement a huddle in the morning. So we had huddles for the last 2 months every morning right before we started work. And we just let go of them this week because it really felt like we had gotten back on track. We had some staffing changes and I was making sure that every day they got a little granular piece of something that we were going to do a little bit better, slight improvements every day. And so we saw revenue go from what felt kind of flatlined for the beginning of that quarter to back up to where we're on track to hit the goal we set in January. So we've made up for it in stride. I think having these open conversations, like Eric mentioned, that there are so many switches. It's like this huge switchboard on a business. And it's not ever that just one is off. It's usually that there's a few little ones that need to get switched. And if we do that, we're going to see positive momentum go forward. So I try to just be upfront and honest with what I'm seeing from the data, and we make little changes every day until we get there.
Yeah, that sounds great. I feel like that's often true in a practice. There's not one silver bullet. It's going to be 101%, in terms of what adds up to reaching your goals and success. Eric, did you want to add something?
Just that, when your team understands where you're at, with your revenue goals and with any other goals or KPIs in the organization, it helps build like a business case or justification for the changes that you ultimately have to make as a practice owner. Sometimes those staffing changes, people leave of their own volition. Sometimes you have to let them go. And those really impact team morale, but if people can see that, oh, well, this office or this provider was kind of lagging behind, and that's clear in the dashboards, it kind of demystifies how decisions are made. And a lot of what we do as business owners is make a case to our team and to other stakeholders for changes in the organization, and having the data to support that really. And sometimes those leading indicators that might be floating out there for a while before you make that decision kind of help to align everybody and give them some sense of trust, and that you are owning the decisions based on data.
Yeah, I love that for sure. Okay, we have a question on block scheduling. It sounds like a popular topic, and we have some good folks here to answer it. So this person's just asking how you determine block scheduling for the week and the month. Like, what's maybe your operational process for that? So happy to hear from any of you on that.
Yeah, we've done block scheduling for, I think, like 15 years at A&E, and it really comes down. I would point to that opportunity value KPI that I shared earlier. ASP could be, or conversion rate could be the way that you get to this number, but for us, we use an opportunity value, and essentially we look at where our revenue goal needs to be, what's a reasonable revenue goal based on the team that we have, how many providers do we have in the clinic seeing patients, and what does their historical performance look like? So essentially, do I have the team to get me to my revenue goal? And then to build the schedule, I then divide the revenue goal by the opportunity value. And that tells me the number of opportunities that need to be on the schedule in order for us to hit that goal in an ideal world. So again, building a business case, whenever my team has questions about the revenue goal, or maybe Eric set it too high, or maybe it's too high in one office, we don't understand. It's based on that building block of opportunity value, and underneath that, conversion rate, binaural rate, keep rate, and ASP. And so I like to be able to tell the team that it is based on the team composition and our historical performance and what we expect from the combination of those two things. So for us, really, it's taking that revenue goal and then backing into it. How many opportunities do we need to see in order to hit it? It generally, just rule of thumb for us, I say in the practice at each provider, we expect them to see 2 opportunities per day, 1 new and 1 existing patient opportunity, an upgrade opportunity. And then, roughly speaking, 50% of them convert, and then that's 1 treatment per day. And I would play around with that with your practice. We've adjusted that number up and down over the years, depending on how what our performance has been like. But I've heard a lot of practices use like 3 a week as kind of a rough estimate of how many treatments they're aiming for. And kind of like I said, rule of thumb, multiply that by 2 to get the number of opportunities, and that's usually a good starting point. And if you block it, then you would ensure that there's room for those revenue generating appointments, and the rest of your schedule is for the other supportive appointments.
Great. Ariel, Madison, do you want to add anything?
I would add, I had a conversation with Eric at a conference about this, and it was super helpful in kind of having me start from scratch when we hadn't had any block scheduling. But what I did was I pulled all of our MVP data from 2024, and I looked at providers that had a great year, and it's like, okay, how can we replicate that? How many of this appointment type did they have? How many of this appointment type did they have? And then taking into account things like their PTO and their vacation. And actually, Eric, you had mentioned this before to me, that when you close for an office workshop, you just shift those opportunities to other days in the week. Or if you have a provider who's going on vacation, maybe you're able to shift it so you actually can keep a pretty steady revenue target, even for circumstances like holidays and vacation. And that has been really helpful. We're able to do the employee engagement workshops, but then we're also able to keep our revenue target on track too. But I mean, I felt like if I just started from nowhere, I wouldn't know if it was realistic at all. So it was really helpful to just very quickly go back to the data from 2024 and say, okay, this is realistic. I think if we just do that again, and then also it's what's our aspirational goal? Where do we want to be? And looking at the difference between those to kind of come up with something that worked for us. But it's been a very slow rollout because there's a lot of training that goes into it. We're very soft at moving the blocks around currently. So.
Well, that makes sense with 10 providers. And I love, Ariel, that you shared that you really concentrated on your top producing providers to try to replicate that out. That makes perfect sense. I love that.
Great. Okay, we have another question here. This one is addressed to you, Madison. So how are you forecasting your revenue? Do you rely on the forecast from MVP, and how accurate do you find that it is for you?
It's very accurate. I know what our growth trajectory has been the last few years, and so I knew what I wanted it to be again this year. I do a lot of talking about marketing to our colleagues. One of the things that I have done since the day I opened is I spend 10 to 12% of revenue on marketing, but I'm spending ahead. I'm spending 10 to 12% of what I am anticipating I'm going to make. So that's very different than staying where I'm at and just spending 10% of today's dollars. So when I created my plan January of this year for the year, I knew I wanted to grow by 30%. We've done that at least year over year, the last 5 years in a row. So I set that goal, and January blew it out of the water. I went, oh my gosh, we're going to grow by 50% because January is so incredible. And then February brought me back down to earth. And then March was good. And we, you find your consistent rhythm. But here we are. And I told you, we had some flatter months growth-wise for a couple months. Most of it was a staffing issue, which made it an issue with the block schedule. I knew that we weren't going to hit our goal because we didn't have enough staff to see the number of opportunities that we needed to see. We staffed up. Here we are, and we're back today. We're at 29% up for the year. So what I predicted in January is actually spot on right now.
Awesome. That's great. Those are good numbers. Okay, great. I don't have any other questions that have been asked by attendees. So I think with that, we will wrap it up. Again, I want to thank the three of you for being here with us today. Thank you, everyone who's joined. And we'll look forward to hopefully seeing many of you at our next user stories session, which will be happening in October. And you'll hear from us about that soon. So thanks again, everybody, and have a great day.
Bye. It's great being with you.